Have you ever felt that the love you experienced wasn't true love, and that what you called a relationship was in reality a silent agreement between two lonely people trying to escape the void? If you have ever felt this, know that you are not alone. More than that, this does not mean that true love does not exist. It only means that it has not yet been built. Yes, true love exists, but it needs to be built, like a sacred house constructed by trembling hands that never surrender. Carl Jung, one of the greatest thinkers of the human psyche, reveals to us that there are 5 profound, almost secret signs that show us when love is real. The first of them begins here, now, within yourself. Before we talk about the signs, we must make a spiritual agreement. We must look honestly at the place from which the most painful questions arise. Will someone ever truly love me? This question does not stem from pride. It stems from the wound of the only love, from being present for someone who was absent, from believing promises made for a moment that were never meant to last. The truth is that we have learned to wait for love to happen to us, like a stroke of luck falling from the sky, like an unexpected miracle, like a beautiful coincidence. And this is why many suffer deeply, because they are waiting for something that must be built, not just found. Jung used to say that our ideal is love because we are divided, and this is precisely why we spend our lives searching for someone who completes us. But what if I told you that true love does not lie in being complete, but in being truly tangible, in being recognized in your shadows and lights, and yet still being chosen? Because this is what true love does. It chooses even after knowing the worst in you. But to find this kind of love, we must first understand what love is. What is love, and what is truth? Here begins the first step. We cannot answer the question, does true love exist, without understanding what love means and what truth means. It seems simple, but this confusion lies at the root of most failed relationships. Because if you are searching for true love, but believe that love is constant attention, the absence of conflict, or effortless passion, you will confuse any illusion with love, and you will be lost. Let us talk about love, but true love. For Empedocles, the ancient Greek philosopher, love was a destructive force that creates something new. He did not see love as a meeting of two halves, but as a creative tension that forms a third entity, the relationship. This changes everything because it shows that love is neither the other nor you. Love is the space between you. It is what is created together in the dance of presence and silence, truths and fears. But here lies the problem. If we ask 1,000 people about the meaning of love, we will get 1,000 different answers. Because love, although it contains something universal, is deeply personal. For some, love is care. For others, it is freedom. For others, it is constant presence, comforting silence, or wild passion. So how do we know what is real? Here comes the second term, truth. What is truth? What is real? In the present time, we often confuse these two terms. We think something is real if it seems right to us, if it aligns with what we believe. But Jung invites us to a deeper understanding. The real thing is what changes us when it has an effect on our soul, when it transforms us from the inside and outside. Truth, then, is what has a psychological effect, what penetrates us. Therefore, true love is not what seems beautiful to us, not what has the perfect image on Instagram. It is what changes us, what penetrates us, what calls us to change, what forces us to grow. True love is what leaves traces, not wounds, what has effects, not just promises. So stop now, take a deep breath, and look at the love you have experienced. Which of them changed you? Which of them made you better? Which of them revealed parts of yourself you didn't know existed? Because true love, perhaps, just perhaps, has already passed through your life and you did not notice it. And if you feel you have never experienced it, do not despair, because true love is not something that happens. It is something that is built. And like any masterpiece, it requires art, surrender, practice, and awareness. Erich Fromm said that love is an art, and like any art, whether music, medicine, sculpture, or writing, it requires study, practice, and devotion. Love is not a talent. It is spiritual work. Love is the willingness to build something with the other, something that demands more than passion. It requires sacrifice, listening, and transformation. Perhaps you have learned that true love happens naturally, that when it is meant to be, it will be. But this is one of the biggest emotional lies of our age. What happens naturally is desire, need, attachment. But love, true love, is built with real bricks and weak cement. And here we reach a fundamental point. Love is a joint effort. You cannot build love alone. You cannot carry a relationship on your shoulders alone. True love requires exchange. It requires two people committed to building a third thing together, the relationship. But be careful. This does not mean perfection. On the contrary, true love is imperfect. It is made of stumbles, difficult conversations, tears shed at dawn. But it is also made of hands holding tightly, glances asking for forgiveness, and silence that welcomes. True love is not the one that never makes mistakes. It is the one that remains even after the mistake. Are you ready to build this love? Are you ready to recognize the signs of true love? In the upcoming chapters, we will dive into the 5 signs that Carl Jung, through deep archetypal models, helps us recognize as signs of true love. These signs are symbolically represented in the wings of the god Eros and in the heart of a fundamental dilemma of the human soul. These signs will challenge you because true love is not comfortable. It is real because it takes us out of our comfort zones. It forces us to grow, to be reborn. But before we move forward, I want to ask you something. What if the love of your life is close to you, but you have not recognized it yet? Why are you waiting for it to come perfect, ready, wrapped like a gift? What if your idea of love is what keeps you away from true love? This is the question that will guide us, because perhaps the biggest obstacle to true love is the imagination of how it should be. We will see you in the next part, where the first wing of Eros will be revealed, along with the hidden truth behind conflict in relationships. Because yes, true love also fights, but it fights in a way that heals. True love is war and beauty. This is the phrase written on the first wing of Eros, and although it seems contradictory or even disturbing at first glance, it holds one of the deepest and most neglected truths about the nature of true love. Because we have learned to flee from conflict as if it were proof that something is wrong. But in reality, conflict is often the only proof that something is real. Yes, true love fights, but it does not destroy. It tears to sew back stronger. It wounds to heal more deeply. And you, who are watching this video with a heart full of stories, may understand exactly what this means. How many times have you tried to keep the peace at any cost? Have you swallowed your words, suppressed your feelings, and silenced the truth, all so as not to lose the other? And yet, you lost them, because you lost yourself in the process. How many relationships that seemed calm ended up empty, lukewarm, devoid of truth? How many times have you wished to be heard and found a silent wall? How many times have you tried to speak and received silence? Love without conflict is not love. It is convenience. Eros, the god of love, was born from the union of Ares and Aphrodite, Mars and Venus, war and beauty. And this reveals something fundamental to us. True love is born from the clash of opposing forces. It is born from the tension between desire and fear, between courage and insecurity, between the impulse to surrender and the instinct to protect. There is no true love without conflict, because only in confrontation do we reveal our shadows. And without showing our shadows, there is no true intimacy. James Hillman wrote that conflict is a deep form of relationship. When we truly fight, not to manipulate or out of pride, but for the truth, we allow ourselves to see and be seen. We uncover what lies beyond the mask, and for a moment, we show our true selves. Fighting, when done honestly, does not divide. It unites, because it forces us to step out of the superficial game of pleasing others and places us face to face with wounds, fears, and unspoken needs. Do you remember the last time you fought with someone, and even amid tears and shouting, you felt that something had to come out? Something that should have been said a long time ago. This is what we are talking about. True love is not afraid of friction. It understands that the heat of friction is what polishes the gold of true connection. But of course, this idea is frightening, especially for those who grew up in homes where conflict meant abandonment, where fighting meant the end, where any raised voice was a threat to emotional safety. And this is why we often confuse calm relationships with healthy ones. But excessive calm can also be an absence. It can be cowardice. It can be a relationship between ghosts. Imagine a couple who have lived together for years. They do not argue, they do not fight, they do not confront. But they also no longer touch each other. They sleep side by side, but they have been distant for a long time. One believes the other is no longer the same as before, and the other believes the flame has gone out. But neither dares to say it, because it is easier to maintain the appearance of peace than to dive into the chaos of change. This type of relationship is like a stagnant pond. The surface is calm, but beneath it, there is stagnation. And for the soul, stagnation is death. Ares and Aphrodite show us that love needs energy, movement, push, life. And conflict is a form of life. I am not talking here about aggression or emotional or physical violence. That is abuse, not love. I am talking about honest clashes, difficult conversations, and moments when the truths are not beautiful but necessary. And when these truths are spoken with respect, even if they are painful, love grows, because the other feels seen, taken seriously, and desired beyond mere coexistence. Many people, when entering a new relationship, try to be perfect. They show only the beautiful, organized, and smart side. But when we show the confused, needy, and imperfect side, and yet are accepted, we begin to feel true love flourishing. But this requires courage. The courage to say, "I did not like the way you spoke to me." The courage to admit, "I feel you are not giving me enough attention." The courage to reveal, "Sometimes I feel lonely even when I am beside you." These phrases may seem simple, but how many times do they get stuck in your throat? How many times do you swallow these words and then go to sleep with a weight in your chest, as if something important was left unsaid? This is why fighting, when it is real, is a form of intimacy. It is the moment when we drop the image and show our true selves. And the most beautiful part is that when two people go through this ordeal together, they are reborn, not as they were before, but closer, more real, because now they know each other from the inside. They know the wounds, the boundaries, the desires, and yet they choose to continue. You may think that true love is the one that avoids conflict. But what if the opposite is true? What if true love is the one that goes beyond conflict and returns stronger. Do you remember a love like this? Or perhaps you long to live a love like this? If your answer is yes, then you are on the right path, because true love is not a gift we receive. It is a spiritual construction. And every construction first requires getting to know the land. The first sign of true love is that it is not afraid of war, because it knows that beauty can be born after war. Is this not the case in life? After great pains, our greatest resurrections are often born. After storms comes clarity. The most honest words emerge after silence. If your relationship has not gone through any real conflict, perhaps it has not yet experienced true love. And if you are alone now, after many wounds, perhaps you are preparing for a love more honest than any you have experienced before. But to achieve this, you must be whole. You must know yourself. You must look deeply into yourself. And here is where many get lost. They want to live a deep love, but they do not dive into themselves. They do not tend to their wounds. And without this, any love will always be superficial. So if this video has touched you, if there is something inside you that feels the time has come to go deeper, then I recommend you check out the ebook, The Way of C.G. Jung, 5 minutes a day for inner peace and mental clarity. It is a simple but profound guide for those who want to apply Jung's teachings in real life, in relationships, decisions, and daily emotional life. A practical path to becoming whole before searching for your other half. The link is in the pinned comment on this video, because true love begins when you learn to love yourself sincerely. If true love is also war and beauty, as we said earlier, then it is also sacrifice. And here is where we begin to lose people, because this word frightens us. Today, sacrifice sounds like loss, like pain, like surrender. But perhaps the real problem is not in the word itself, but in what we have failed to understand about it. Sacrifice comes from the Latin word sacrificium, which means to make sacred. This changes everything. Sacrifice in love is not suffering for the sake of suffering. It is making the other and the relationship sacred by consciously letting go of a part of ourselves. It is not about self-erasure, but about leaving behind what is no longer useful. It is the death of letting go of some ego, impulses, and old beliefs in the name of something greater, born in the true encounter with the other. But how do we know when it is sacrifice and when it is self-abandonment? This is the question many ask in silence. Perhaps you are living this now. Perhaps you wonder whether what you give to the other is an act of love, or yet another attempt to be accepted at any cost. Often, the answer lies in what remains of you after giving. If bitterness remains, if inner silence remains, if existential fatigue remains, then perhaps it is not love. Perhaps it is fear of loneliness. But if, when giving, you feel something inside you growing, maturing, ascending, then this is sacrifice. This is sanctification. Jung used to say that all true love requires sacrifice, because love is not about preserving everything we are. Love is sometimes letting go of parts that only made sense in solitude. It is choosing not to be right in an argument. It is holding back words when they would wound. It is setting aside pride to listen with humility. And if you think this diminishes you, perhaps you are still looking at love from the perspective of competition, not unity. Now, take a deep breath and think. What is the greatest sacrifice you have made for love? Write it in the comments. Sharing this is not an exhibition. It is collective healing, because pain that is spoken melts a little. But let us go deeper. Imagine a 58-year-old woman who lived in a marriage for 20 years. She had children, built a home, and overcame difficult times. But in the last 5 years, she realized she was lonely, despite having someone by her side. Her husband no longer listened to her. She would speak, and he would be distracted. She would cry, and he would sleep. She began to wonder if this was normal, if this was love. Until one day, she decided to leave. And there, she lived the greatest sacrifice of her life. It was not leaving the house. It was not dividing the property. It was letting go of the idea she had carried for 2 decades. That love is enduring everything in silence. That being a wife means being invisible. She sacrificed a myth written in an old lie. And in that separation, something sacred was born. Her true self. Now think of another example. A 61-year-old widower who did not allow himself to love again. He believed he had lived enough. But gradually, he grew closer to a friend he had known in his youth. They started talking again. She made him laugh. He found himself dreaming again. But instead of surrendering to love, he hesitated. He felt fear. Fear of losing again. Fear of opening up, only to see everything end. And what did he do? He withdrew. He closed himself off. He avoided her. What does this man need to sacrifice? His attachment to control, his fear of the past, the false safety of a life protected from pain. Understand this. Sacrifice is not always about others. Often, it is about ourselves. It is about sacrificing our narcissism, that inner voice that says, "No one will love me as I am, so it is better not to try." It is sacrificing perfectionism, pride, rigidity. And why is this so hard? Because sacrifice is dying a little, dying to an old way of life. And every death is frightening, but every death also makes way for the new. Now, I ask you with all sincerity, what needs to die in you for true love to be born? Write it. Share it. Sometimes, just bringing it out begins the transformation of pain into truth. But let us go even further. There is a type of sacrifice almost no one talks about, the sacrifice of the ideal self. You know what I mean? That image you have created for yourself over the years. The strong, independent person who never cries, or the romantic who never heals, who does everything for love, even if mistreated. Both are masks. And in true love, the masks fall, because no one can maintain a false persona for long in an intimate relationship. Have you ever pretended to be fine just so others would not worry? Have you ever hidden your weaknesses to seem more attractive? Have you ever refrained from asking for what you needed for fear of seeming demanding? These are inverted sacrifices. They do not make us sacred. They empty us. True sacrifice is the one that stems from love for oneself and for the other. It builds. It does not destroy. It brings closer. It does not push away. And sometimes, the greatest sacrifice we can make is allowing others to see us as we truly are, without masks, without defenses, without performance. This is vulnerability. And vulnerability is the shortest bridge between two souls. Carl Jung warned that denying sacrifice in love leads to the collapse of the relationship, because love without sincerity becomes bargaining. And whoever loves to gain something in return has already begun to lose. But there is more. Sacrifice in true love is not one-sided. It is not always you who concedes, always you who adapts. True love is a dance, one step from you, one step from the other. A retreat here, an advance there. When only one sacrifices, this is not love. It is emotional exploitation. So, notice, does the person with you also sacrifice? Does they also concede? Does they also change? Or are you carrying everything alone? These questions are painful, but they liberate. And perhaps now, at this point in the video, you feel a lump in your throat because you recognize yourself, because you have lived this or are living it now. And this is precisely why Jung's signs are not just ideas. They are mirrors that show what lies beyond beautiful words. They reveal what is truly at stake. Have you ever looked into the eyes of someone you love and realized you are losing them? Not for lack of love, but for lack of courage to sacrifice? Have you felt that a gesture of humility, of letting go of pride, or of asking for forgiveness would have been enough, and that everything could have been different? If so, then you know what we are talking about. And if you could turn back time, what would you do differently? Write it. Yes, here in the comments, because someone may read it and learn from your story. True love is a construction, but like any work, it requires investment, effort, and leaving some things behind. As when moving from one house to another, you do not take everything with you. You take only what matters. The rest, you donate. You thank it, and you let it go. Perhaps today you are at a decisive moment. Perhaps you are in a relationship that needs a real step of surrender. Or perhaps you are alone, but you feel you need to let go of some emotional armor to allow someone in. In both cases, the path passes through sacrifice, through sanctification. Because true love, when it comes, is not perfect. It comes with challenges, with shadows, with difficult moments. But it also comes with an opportunity to know the other and yourself in a way no superficial relationship allows. And in this encounter, even with all the pain, you will realize something few understand. True sacrifice does not impoverish you. It enriches you. It does not take from you. It reveals you. It is not the end of something. It is the beginning of everything. If true love is war and beauty, and if it is also sacrifice, then it must also be something else. Support. But be careful. We are not talking about support as a superficial, generic concept. We are talking about something deep, a force that unfolds especially in moments when everything seems to be falling apart. When you feel on the edge, when you have no ground, no direction, and yet there is someone there, someone who does not flee, who does not try to fix everything, but simply stays. This is the third wing of Eros. True love is a crutch, a silent but solid crutch of support. Now, think honestly. How many people in your life have been true support in times of crisis? How many stayed with you when you were not at your best, when you were not kind, not beautiful, not cheerful, when your shadow covered the room? Perhaps you need the fingers of one hand to count them. And perhaps you realize with some pain that many who swore eternal love disappeared in the hardest times. This is more common than we think. According to data from a study conducted by the American Psychological Association, APA, more than 40% of divorces recorded in the United States over the past 10 years were due to a lack of emotional support in times of deep vulnerability. This means that nearly half of marriages ended not because of infidelity, money, or routine, but because one partner could not or would not offer support to the other when it was most needed. This truth reveals something profound. The clearest evidence that love is real is how it behaves when the other is in pain. And we are not necessarily talking about great tragedies. We are talking about ordinary, daily pains. But when they accumulate, they become heavy, like stones on the shoulders. A 38-year-old woman once wrote to me, "During my anxiety attack, he simply left the room. He said he did not know what to do and went to watch TV. Then he got angry because I ruined his day." Another 56-year-old woman confessed, "When I lost my mother, he kept telling me to be strong, but he never sat with me to listen to my crying. It was as if my grief bothered him." Do you know what these stories have in common? They show an absence that hurts more than loneliness. Because loneliness is expected, but absence in the presence is not. Have you ever felt this? Have you ever gone through a difficult moment and felt that the person beside you was not really there? If the answer is yes, then you understand the importance of this third sign of Eros. True love does not carry you in its arms every day, but it offers you a crutch when your emotional leg is broken. It does not promise to heal your traumas, but it promises not to abandon you while you try. It doesn't demand that you be fine all the time. It welcomes you even when you feel ugly inside. And this is rare in our days, very rare. We live in an age where performance is more important than presence, where people say, "You can count on me," but disappear when your problem does not have a quick solution, where "I love you so much" turns into silence when life becomes complicated. Eros, however, reminds us, true love is the one that bends to listen to you when the world turns its back on you. It is the one that holds your hand while you face your inner demons. And sometimes, this is more important than all the poetic phrases in the world. There is an interesting study conducted in London in 2021 with over 1,000 couples who had been together for at least 20 years. When asked what kept their relationship alive for so long, the most common answer was not sex, compatibility, or fun. It was, "They never left me alone when I was breaking." There is nothing stronger than being witnessed in the midst of pain, because that is where masks fall, where truth appears, where words lose their power and gestures become everything. I remember a 63-year-old man who once told me, "When I was depressed, my wife would stop what she was doing just to sit beside me. She did not say anything. She just stayed there. And that is what saved me." Pause. Breathe. Think about that. Have you been this kind of support? Have you received this kind of support? Or does your relationship only work when everything is fine? These are hard questions, but they are essential, because it is very easy to love someone on sunny days. The hard part is keeping love burning when everything seems to be falling apart. And it is not about emotional dependence. It is about emotional exchange. It is knowing that despite your strength, you will sometimes break, and that it is okay to do so in the arms of someone who chose to be with you, not for your stability, but for your truth. By the way, have you ever dared to show your truth to someone? Your raw truth, without filters, without a script, with all your chaos, fragility, and bad days? If the answer is yes, and this person stayed in your life, then congratulations. This is true love. If the answer is no, then perhaps it is time to reconsider the quality of your relationships. Do not accept, from now on, relationships where your exhaustion is a nuisance, where your grief is a burden, where your weakness is a subject of mockery or discomfort. Love is, above all, learning how to be. And being is the art of a silent, supportive presence that does not judge, does not correct, but simply welcomes. How many times have you wished for someone to look you in the eyes and say, "You don't need to say anything. I'm here"? How many times have you felt that you needed just that presence? Not gifts, not ready-made words, just presence. This is more precious than gold. And here lies the key point of true love. When it is a crutch, it does not make you dependent. It helps you walk on your own again. It is support that strengthens, not imprisons. It is an outstretched hand, not emotional chains. If there is someone who supports you to return to relying on yourself, this is love. If there is someone who demands performance to deserve love, this is manipulation. Look around. Notice who stays by your side when you are bleeding, who approaches you when you lose your shine, who sees your light even when you show only darkness. These people are rare. Keep them. And if you are this person for someone, know that you represent the love the world desperately needs. In times of deep emotional abandonment, Being this kind of love is a revolutionary act. If true love is war and beauty, sacrifice and support, then there is one more essential secret. Perhaps the most ignored, neglected, and sabotaged of all. True love needs constant renewal, relentlessly, almost desperately. Because without renewal, even the purest love withers. The human soul, like nature, needs movement, change, new beginnings, even within what remains. This is the fourth wing of Eros. True love renews itself constantly. And here lies a harsh truth. Many people confuse stability with security, and security with love. But stability that paralyzes movement is actually a prelude to the end. It is the silence before the collapse. Because love that repeats identically every day, without poetry, without surprises, without challenges, falls asleep. And a sleeping relationship becomes prone to emotional death. How many times have you heard someone say, "We grew apart over time. There was no fight, no betrayal. We just grew apart"? This distancing is often the result of a relationship that stayed alive in form, but not in substance. A relationship that did not change, did not take risks, stopped in time while the people in it continued to change. And here lies the paradox. The only way to keep true love alive is to let it die and be reborn several times. But what does this mean in practice? It means you cannot expect yourself or the other to maintain the same relationship forever. People change, and love must keep up with these changes, or it will be left behind. A woman who loved social events at 30 may prefer silence and solitude at 50. A man who needed constant adventure at 40 may desire stability and contemplation at 60. If love does not learn to adapt to these changes, it collapses, not for lack of feeling, but for lack of flexibility. Love must be flexible. It must stretch, shrink, adapt. It must dance according to life stages without losing its essence. And this requires attention, inner work, active listening to the reality of the other and your own reality. It requires stepping out of autopilot mode, where everything is predictable, and planting curiosity. When was the last time you looked at the person you love as if you were meeting them for the first time? When was the last time you asked an unexpected question, broke the routine, and created a new moment between you? Many relationships end due to excessive routine. Routine swallows beauty. Repetition erases desire. Comfort chokes magic. And this has nothing to do with time. Couples who have lived together for decades can rediscover each other every month if they have the courage to do so. The courage to change conversations, the courage to change gestures, the courage to admit that some forms of coexistence were successful but no longer are. True love requires reinvention. A study conducted by the Family Research Institute in the United States in 2020 revealed that couples who practiced some form of planned routine change once a month, whether a new outing, a new conversation, or a new experience, were 33% more likely to maintain their relationship with high levels of emotional satisfaction after 10 years. This is much higher than those who only coexisted. Emotional creativity is the key to love's longevity. But here comes the most sensitive part. Renewing love does not only mean creating new external things, it also means allowing yourself to change from within. Changing how you react, changing how you listen, changing your emotional structure if necessary. One of the biggest obstacles in relationships is the phrase, "This is just how I am," as if it were a final sentence, as if there were no room for evolution, as if love were not worth the effort of change. If you believe that love is being accepted as you are and nothing more, then perhaps you are seeking acceptance, not love. Because true love, although it accepts us as we are, also invites us to grow, to step out of old patterns, to let go of old reactions, to become better people with the other and for the other. If you are always the same in the relationship, then something is wrong, because love is also seeing yourself through the mirror of the other and then changing what needs to be changed. Now, think of how many relationships you know that died due to lack of movement. Couples who no longer knew what to say to each other, who no longer had curiosity, who became just good roommates, or worse, strangers living under the same roof. This is silent grief, the grief of emotional stagnation. And this is why renewal must be a daily choice. It does not have to be something big. It can start with small things, an unexpected compliment, a sincere apology, a new look at an old wound, a midweek dinner, a longer hug, a conversation without the phone in hand. Small things, but they say, "I still see you. I still care. I'm still here." Do you know what the greatest danger to a lasting relationship is? The illusion that it will last forever, even without maintenance. But even the strongest love fades when we stop watering it. And watering is renewal. Inventing new ways to say, "I love you," new ways to touch, new ways to care, new ways to be together. And do you know what the greatest gift in a renewing relationship is? Discovering that there are multiple people within the same person, and that true love is not loving one version of the other, but all versions, including those not yet born. And here lies the most beautiful part. Constant renewal of love saves us from boredom, but also from abandonment. Because where there is renewal, there is life. And where there is life, there is hope. You do not need a perfect relationship. You need a living one. And what is a living relationship? It is one where both are willing to change, to err, and to start anew, to look at each other with new eyes, to avoid the trap of habit. It is one where there are still questions, still listening, still a desire to learn from each other. It is one where it is accepted that sometimes it will be necessary to die a little to be reborn together. And this is sacred. Do you feel that your relationship has stopped? That the connection has lost its strength? That the dialogue has become one-sided? If so, then perhaps it is time for renewal. Do not wait for the other. Change a habit, change a perspective, change an expectation.